In this lesson, we are going to see how sectionalism eventually leads to the Civil War with the election of Abraham Lincoln, and why the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 pushes the South towards secession and the Civil War begins. We are also going to look at nullification, and in this section we're going to look at the Missouri Compromise. First of all, before we begin the notes, the Louisiana Purchase would increase sectionalism, and we are going to learn about the first state to apply for statehood from the Louisiana Purchase, which would be Missouri. The big question with Missouri was, is it going to be a slave state or is it going to be a free state? Now, this, of course, is going to affect representation in mainly the Senate. We've already learned in the previous lesson that the House was under Northern control because they had a greater population. But the Senate was balanced. And this is where we're going to start our learning today. So the first state to apply for, or the first area to apply for statehood from the Louisiana Purchase was Missouri. And the question of Missouri is, are they going to allow slavery in Missouri, or is it going to be a free state where slavery is prohibited? So, this is important about Louisiana Purchase for many reasons. One, it would upset the balance in the Senate. And it was either going to swing the balance in the Senate towards the free states that already had control of the House, or it was going to swing the balance in the Senate towards the slave states, which the free states did not want. So the Senate would be the key question with the Missouri Compromise. Already, remember, the House was controlled by the North due to the fact that immigrants moved in, attracted to the industry, and raised the northern population, which gave them more votes in the House. So, after much debate, neither side wants Missouri to be the opposite of what they want. Slave or free, slave or free. Well, eventually, the Missouri Compromise occurs, and the Missouri Compromise has three parts. Now, Missouri was such an important state, or this was such an important decision, too, because Missouri would set the precedent for future states that would come from the Louisiana Purchase. If Missouri was a free state, then pretty much all the states from the Louisiana Purchase would be free. Well, if it was slave, they would all be free. So Missouri would set the precedent, and it became important. So the three parts of the Missouri Compromise were as follows. First, what you haven't been hearing is that there was another state that applied for statehood shortly after, and that state was Maine. So, to maintain the balance in the Senate, two states were actually let to join in the U.S. One, Missouri, was let in as a slave state, while Maine was let in as a free state. The final piece of the Missouri Compromise, though, would establish the future settlement for the Louisiana Purchase. And that was a line was drawn across the Louisiana Purchase. And there could be no new slave states above this line. This line is a latitude line, and it is the 36-degree, 30-minute latitude line. There were to be no new slave states above this line. Below, they could apply for statehood and allow slavery. Above, there was to be no new slave states. This compromise was extremely important because the balance in the Senate was maintained. To re-emphasize what was just said, the first national problem between the North and South was Missouri applying for statehood. Northern states thought Missouri would upset the balance between free and slave states. Of course, the South was extremely worried because it would upset the balance in favor of the North in the Senate. However, Missouri did want to be slave. Missouri was the first state applying for statehood after Louisiana Purchase, thereby setting a precedent. In the end, the Missouri Compromise composed of 3 parts. 1, Missouri became a slave state. 2, Maine became a free state. And 3, a line was drawn where any new states north of that had to be a free state. Southerners, however, learned from this crisis the importance of maintaining the balance of Senate votes from slave and free states. Here is a picture of the line for the Missouri Compromise, where, as you can see, it let a lot of land that could become free states with only a little for slave. And, you know, doesn't exactly look like the South got a good deal here. So, Maine, Missouri, and the line were the 3 pieces of the Missouri Compromise. The next thing we are going to learn about is called the nullification or interposition crisis. And the nullification crisis involves our buddy John C. Calhoun. Now, the whole reason for the nullification crisis was a protective tariff, and the South wanted to nullify it, which was using that idea that Thomas Jefferson and James Madison came up with in the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. Let's review what a protective tariff is and why the South wanted to nullify it. So the nullification crisis involves the passing of a protective tariff. And a protective tariff is passed to protect American industry and make people want to buy American. Now, why this occurs is this. A tariff is a tax on imports. You've learned that before. In 1828, this protective tariff is passed, and the South does not like it. Now, a protective tariff is pretty much this. So, when the foreign merchants want to bring something into the USA, they have to pay a tax. So, picture tax collectors at the port with their bags, and they're like, "We're here to collect your taxes on your imports, and not popular fellows, because no one likes to pay taxes." So what happens is, let's pretend that the British, French, Spanish, they want to bring something in. So they're coming in and they're like, "So you have goods. picture another guy, you want to bring into the USA. They're like, you have to pay the tax. And these guys go, but this will raise the prices we can sell our goods for. And the tax collectors will say in chorus, exactly, exactly, exactly. Because that is what a protective tariff does. It raises the price of foreign goods. So when they get over here, they can't sell them as and compete with the American-made ones. Now, this is great for American manufacturing, and the mill owners especially love this, like this guy who owned a mill, a textile mill, because foreign textiles couldn't compete with him. And this rich mill owner, which is wearing I don't know what, but not quite what I had before, he is really happy about the protective tariff. He says, good thing for that protective tariff. The high prices it makes foreign goods, allows me to sell mine cheaper than them or than the foreign. And that's true, because let's just say it costs $5 to make a shirt or make a profit on a shirt, and every price of a shirt was $5. The Europeans were planning on coming over here and competing with American manufacturing by selling their shirts for $5. But after they had to pay the tariff of $2 per shirt, then they can't sell theirs for $5 anymore, can they? What can they sell them for? They're probably going to have to sell them for $5 plus $2, or $7. Well, this guy can sell his for $5. So which one are the American people going to buy? They are going to buy his that are on sale for $5. Trouble is, this guy realizes that he don't have to sell them for $5 anymore, and people are still going to buy them. And this becomes one of the South's arguments against the protective tariff and why they don't like it and want to nullify it. So the Southerners, with some of my characters, you know, Bob the farmer, says, hey, this protective tariff stinks. It doesn't benefit the South at all. And it just lets the North charge more for their manufactured goods we buy. Or we pay even more for our British ones. So, basically, shirts have risen in price. Let's give him a button down. Well, and that's true, because the American manufacturer, being a good businessman, realizes that prices, that shirts, his nearest competition is $7. Why should he charge the $5 that he was before the tariff? So he raises the price of his shirts up, still less than $7, but higher than before. Shirts are now $6. So the cheapest shirt after the tariff is now $6. So the Southerners, who feel that this tariff is only benefiting one section of the nation, says, hey, let's nullify this protective tariff. And this nullification thing, You know, the farmer's like, what you talking about nullification? So he explains this to them, and nullification, remember, was an idea brought up by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison in the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, where they discussed states' rights. Now, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison wanted to nullify the Alien and Sedition Acts, but here would be a new thing that someone wanted to nullify. Now, this brings us to John C. Calhoun and the response to this tariff. So, the nullification crisis occurred because of this protective tariff, because it raised not only the price of foreign goods, but American manufacturers realized they could raise the price of their goods as well. So, the South wants to nullify it. John C. Calhoun, who was elected as vice president, if you remember, he was a Democratic Republican, would become the Southern voice of nullification. And John C. Calhoun, who was, we know, as the war hawk because he wanted war with Great Britain, he would be the voice of nullification and states' rights in Congress. John C. Calhoun would write the South Carolina Exposition and Protest, and in it he re-emphasized Madison and Jefferson's idea of states' rights. And what he basically said in the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, or in the South Carolina Exposition and Protest, is that states make up the United States of America, and states should not have to follow a federal law that they disagree with. So they should be able to nullify that law. Basically, that states have more power than the federal government. The idea that was established by the Articles of Confederation, and many felt that the Constitution gave too much power to the federal government. So this South Carolina Exposition and Protest, written by John C. Calhoun, would re-emphasize the importance of states' rights and re-bring up the idea that states should be able to nullify laws. So there are three things you need to know about John C. Calhoun, and let's see a couple pictures of him so we can remember them. Here is John C. Calhoun, the Democratic Republican. He became vice president, and he would be the vocal opponent of the protective tariff that the North wanted to pass, because the protective tariff only benefited one section of the nation, the North. John C. Calhoun should also be known for a war hawk, which we already learned because of his desire and others to declare war on Britain, which resulted in the War of 1812. His most famous role was his fight for states' rights and nullification, and his role in the nullification crisis.